Welcome to the finale here in our Lead Magnet docu-series. As you have probably seen, we have been following the process as MonkeyPod designs, builds, launches, and promotes a lead magnet for capturing new leads and directing them towards our flagship course, The Fundamentals of Business Automation. This project has been a bunch of fun. We started it without really knowing where it would end. And so the objective for this conversation is just sort of to take stock of the entire process, to pull some lessons out of it, to talk about what went really well and, opportunities that we may have overlooked, and then to give you some advice on things you might do with this information to propel your business forward. So, Cameron,
yes.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty great. How you doing?
Yeah, really well. This project has been fun, and I feel excited about the ways that I think and hope it can serve our audience in terms of contextualizing an important concept that we both know can make a difference for small businesses. So will you just maybe at a super high level run through sort of the milestones, like recap this project in terms of like where it started and where we are today, in case somebody hasn't seen the previous modules, just to give them the bird's eye view of what took place here?
Absolutely. We, like many other business owners, just identified that there was this gap that we needed to fill. So we started out with some ideation. Well, what are we going to create? Is a lead magnet the right thing to do? If yes, lead magnet's the right thing to do, which lead magnet? And you pitched the concept of a glossary of what eventually became the language of automation cheat sheet, which during the course of creating this documentary, we had to work through a half dozen different, even just titles for the document.
Yeah.
So we identified that there was a gap in our customer journey, too far of a jump to get brand new people into our fundamentals course, and then hopefully eventually also into our membership. Then choosing a lead magnet, and then choosing this lead magnet, the language of automation cheat sheet, having that thing be created both from a content perspective and then also from a design perspective. Then having this cheat sheet, well, how are people going to find it? Especially when our objective was not to just introduce another item to our already loyal audience. What are we going to do about that? Well, we're going to need to pay to drive traffic. So we got our friend Paul Sokol to come in and take us through his very real consultative process for purchasing ads. We invested, we spent, some real dollars pushing that ad out to brand new people. And we used our customer journey system, our automation system, to receive the signal from the people who downloaded that item, deliver it to them, and then nurture them from there. So there's been really a cross section of, what should we do? What's that asset going to look like? How are we going to drive new traffic through ads to it? And technologically, how are we going to use our marketing automation tools to deliver and nurture on all of those things? All done in this short series of videos.
Yeah, I think it's in my opinion, as my biased opinion, it is a microcosm of how business operates on a macro scale. Is just like finding your audience, defining your offer, something of value that both serves them and establishes your expertise, authority, value, etc. And then using automation so that the customer experience you design happens repeatably and produces positive results. And then using, targeted traffic and, human budget or ad spend in order to ramp up the eyeballs that see that offer and experience what you have laid out for them. And I'm really pleased with how things have played out here. But it wasn't a flawless execution of this. If we've done our job well, you can see what worked throughout this series, and hopefully there are lessons that you can take back and apply to your own business and the challenges you're looking to overcome, or the audiences you're looking to reach, or the gaps you're looking to bridge. But I want to share in this video a few things first that I think we did really well. now that we have done this, and by the way, the ads are ongoing. Like those will continue to function for the foreseeable future, doing their job, driving traffic and capturing leads. Before we get too much history or before we get too far removed from this project, we wanted to put a sort of a bow on it with some reflections and debrief where we're at so that anyone who has followed along this series can benefit from our learnings and our observations throughout it. So let's start with what went well, and then we will transition to maybe the opportunities we overlooked or the lessons we learned along this way. So Cam, in terms of this project and any aspect of it, what stands out to you as like something that you're really proud of or that went well in this undertaking?
Yeah, I think things that I'm proud of and went well, there's a couple of them. One, I'm happy that there was some momentum around getting it done, right? I think that, everything, I feel like everything in business all the time takes a little bit longer than I hoped that it would between, scheduling and waiting for results and the real work that needs to get done. Everything always takes a little longer than I expected, but I did like that, whether it was just our style to approaching this or because we had this documentary project running concurrently, that there was a need to keep going, right? Not to get frustrated and say, oh, well, we'll beat about this next week, right? I did enjoy that there was some momentum that came from having, a reason to get this done. So maybe that's one of the learnings is that we should always make sure we have a reason to get something done that's inspiring enough to keep us moving on a particular timeline. So I think that went well for us in this case. I like that we made a choice to go with a PDF, like to go with a downloadable, because we're course people, because we like to teach. I think that we often want to go all the way to course. But there was just something really accessible about the PDF downloadable that felt, it felt like a reasonable commitment to ask brand new audience members to join. So I'm really happy retrospectively that as we were going through that discussion of is it a course, is it a downloadable, or is it something totally different, that we chose the downloadable choice, which I know Monkey Pot has done, maybe twice before, two or three times before over its 10-year history. It was a little bit of a less conventional choice for us, maybe conventional for other people.
Let me add a couple things on that. I agree. Like, we weren't just launching a lead magnet, we were also creating a docuseries about launching the lead magnet. So there were two concurrent projects here, and that added some complexity, certainly. Sure. But it also added some accountability for us in terms of like, well, we have to keep this thing moving because it's part of this bigger project that we are endeavoring to kind of collect and then ultimately produce and share with people. But that is a product of our own making, and anybody who's launching their own lead magnet won't necessarily have that meta, architecture around it with the extra complexity. So hopefully, if you're launching your own PDF or mini course or whatever it happens to be, you can see that there are some simpler ways to get this done without all of the extra fanfare that we have included here. But the second thing I want to press on that you said, Cameron, is that we chose the PDF as a medium because of the simplicity. Hey, here is your downloadable PDF. Take it with you, read through it, peruse it. And some people really like having a downloadable resource that they can consume, on their phone or on their computer and sort of, it's frictionless from the delivery perspective. But I do want to say, in the production of that PDF, we identified that we could also launch a language of automation mini course, and we did. So this docuseries has been about the production of that PDF, but as course creators, we realized there was some natural learnings that could be expanded on from the PDF in a course format. So we do have both. This followed the production of and distribution of and promotion of the PDF version, but we also have a language of automation mini course that we will probably similarly set up ads to promote and just to, as another mechanism for reaching a new audience and collecting leads, establishing the common vernacular that we know will help create the appetite for that flagship course. So I just want to call that out because the modality is important, but they're not mutually exclusive, right? If you're designing a lead magnet for your business, you can offer a PDF to the people who want that. And you can offer a video or a video series to the people who want that. And it allows you to serve maybe different segments of the same audience with whatever their particular preference might be for how they receive that information.
Absolutely.
One more thing that I think we did well, and then we can transition to the lessons that we've learned. One thing we did well is I think the division of responsibilities. We approached this project and the documentary around it with like sort of a casting, right? We decided Cameron was going to be the strategist, Greg was going to be the designer and the automation architect, Paul was going to be the ad specialist, and Cameron, as our business owner, you met with Paul to get the coaching we needed and decide on the audience and the budget and to launch those ads, right? So I think that we recognized our own strengths, we dissected and distributed what needed to be accomplished, and we brought in expertise to complement or supplement where we had gaps and needed some leadership from someone other than the Monkey Pod team. So I just feel proud of that because I know small business owners, entrepreneurs are infinitely capable, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do everything, right? And so by being willing to take off some of those hats to distribute those responsibilities, I think we did a better job of assigning the ownership and letting us specialize in the different areas instead of spreading ourselves too thin.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at maybe the things that we missed or overlooked or areas where we experienced more friction than we might have expected. And I will actually start with one, and that was in the actual design of the PDF. So in that module, I think everyone saw that I just used Google Slides to create the PDF. And that's because I'm not a designer. I don't, really know how to use Canva, but I do know how to make good looking slides. And I was able to sort of cobble it together in a way that we both felt was adequate. Or even good and fine to distribute to people who took us up on this offer. But what we didn't show in that episode was that wasn't our first attempt at creating the PDF. We actually first engaged with an external designer, gave them the content, and asked them to produce a PDF. And we went through, it might have been one or two different rounds of like iterations, but we weren't seeing the progress that we wanted to see in terms of getting a deliverable PDF that we felt conveyed the value in a clear way, had design that matched up with the Monkey Pod brand aesthetics. And so I think Cameron probably had more patience than I did and would have continued to work with them. But I just thought maybe I can whip something up in Google Slides. And I intended to do it as like, let me show them what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And then I got carried away and thought, well, it only took me a couple, an hour or a couple of hours to get a draft version in place. Well, is it easier to just do it myself rather than try to communicate to them the vision that I have for this project? So I think that was maybe a misstep is we delegated something without setting them up for success. And so I think by bringing that back in-house, we actually removed some of the complexity and created a simpler version with less communication, back and forth lag and or miscommunication, I might say. So that's one thing that stood out to me, and yeah. I'm pretty pleased with the final product. But it's not lost on me that I just complimented us for assigning the right roles, and that was one misstep where I think we may have gone too far in terms of trying to bring in extra hands on this project.
Right. Contrasting that was our experience with Paul, right? Paul was the other kind of vendor partner expert who came in on the project. And my takeaway from that was much, much more positive, yes. Right? I think that if I had decided to do the ads myself as somebody who's ad adjacent, knows a lot about marketing, but not a lot about ads. Oh, but that's only 1 degree out of my wheelhouse. I think that could have formed a substantial mistake, because there were things in what Paul taught us during the consultation process. As an example, the idea of having your audiences essentially cascade, right? That as we defined our first audience, we had to consciously exclude that exact audience from our second one, and then exclude both of those audiences from the third one, and so on down the line. Like, that would have been a big mistake that we would be debriefing in this call had I, not outsourced it or not trusted the expert to deal with those types of things.
Yeah, and on the ads portion of the experience, you led that conversation, or you and Paul did, and I think that we got to a point where obviously the ad set is producing leads, and we're pleased with like the way that is working, but there were some technical difficulties in terms of getting those ads up and running, and some of that was unique to our circumstance. MonkeyPod had not run paid ads in a while. With the transition of ownership for our business, we had different payment methods, and the actual physical location of our business had changed countries. And so we ran into some logistical challenges to get our ad set up and running that probably delayed the launching of those ads by at least a week. And I don't know if or how that's represented, but I think that's one thing that I want viewers to walk away with is like, you can have the right strategy, but technology, there might be a waiting period for you to get approved or for something to be uploaded or verified. And like having that experience now, I might recommend to somebody starting the ad conversation earlier, just doing a test promo of something for a low dollar value to make sure that you have like the infrastructure, the right permissions assigned, and the right access enabled in order to make that process go as smoothly as possible once you're ready for the lead flow to begin. So I think that we navigated it and got to a point where I'm pleased with the results, but there definitely was some friction there that could have been alleviated if we had begun that process or exploration a little earlier in the conversation. Is that fair to say, Cameron?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I think also it was a source of a bit of anxiety for me because I didn't want to let you or Paul or anyone else down. And I will say for anybody watching, it was extremely frustrating when it felt like nothing was working. I was doing that thing where I was clicking a button on the billings page that said, verify your method. They would open a form to send a ticket to the meta people, and then the meta people would send an email that said, you need to go to the page to verify your method, which was the page where the contact support thing happened. So it felt almost hopeless until it started working, even at that $3 or $4 payment threshold, because it's actually worked consistently since then. So it was all broken, and then it was all fixed. And I appreciate that at least it moved from one zone into the other without having to worry about somebody breathing on the popsicle structure, as I thought would maybe be the case.
Totally. And I think the takeaway lesson for everybody who's following along is that there probably will be friction in these processes, right? And that's part of the game of small business. Cameron and I are both fairly technical and, established in terms of our marketing and automation expertise. And still, this process wasn't 100% fluid with no mistakes, right? There are bound to be those types of hurdles because technology changes. These platforms are dependent on systems and tools that can be flawed. And so just having some patience and some grace as you navigate those, I think will go a long ways. And we wanted to include that portion of this conversation because we didn't want to misrepresent what this takes. It isn't, a seamless experience every single time. We're pleased with where we got to, but it's not without some friction that helped us arrive here.
I think that this series that we're putting together, I hope finds a balance of we've done enough of the movie magic pre-measured experiences that you're not bored by watching it, but also, some stuff was mismeasured, some stuff spilled as
Yeah.
we went, and I hope that shows through as we do this.
And there are hours and hours of recording that aren't going to be in this docuseries because we wanted to capture it all, but we also know that like you have to meet someone in the middle in terms of like what's the real experience, what are the takeaways we want people to see and hear, and what will serve someone who's watching this, because ultimately that is our goal. As much as we want to like document this whole process, we want to do it in a way that helps anyone who takes the time to watch this leave with ideas, inspiration, or confidence that can propel your business forward. And I'm actually going to call an audible here, Cameron. I want to wrap this conversation up that we're having, and then I want to save the last question for what will become a 7th module to put a bow on this whole project. So let's set this video as like maybe the reflection video, and where we talked about the project, we talked about the lessons learned and what went well, and then in our final video, which we can record in just a few moments here, we'll talk about the next steps and opportunities for what we might do for a next version of this project moving forward. So with that said, let's bring this video to a close. Thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you, Cameron, for joining me as we share our collective insights and experience. And we will see you back for what I, fingers crossed, hope will be the true finale of this lead magnet docuseries project.